Well, welcome back to Hey Kentucky. We've been talking about this civics poll. We'd like to dive a little deeper into it now. I'm pleased to welcome to the show CNN political analyst and longtime advisor to Mitch McConnell, Scott Jennings. Scott, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hey, glad to do it. Good to see you. Via Zoom.
Via Zoom. It's how we do things now.
Yeah.
So one of the really big stories that comes out of this poll is that Charles Booker seems to have taken a fairly significant lead on Amy McGrath, but maybe what's missed in it is that regardless of who the Democratic challenger is, Mitch McConnell still has a significant lead over either one of those challengers.
Yeah, look, I think there are real structural problems with the idea that Democrats would beat a Republican incumbent senator in a state like Kentucky in a presidential year. This civics poll that came out showed McConnell well over 50% in beating both Booker and McGrath, who were down in the 30s. I mean, with McGrath, you've got a candidate, if she is the nominee, who is on the record blatantly stating she was, quote, hell no on Donald Trump, saying that she considered his election to be like another 9/11. And then in Charles Booker, if he's the nominee, you've got a Democrat who has said, I guess, hell yes to Bernie Sanders and AOC and Elizabeth Warren, who all have agendas that are not going to be mainstream in Kentucky. So really, Democrats are trying to convince a state that's going to give Donald Trump 60% of his votes. He's going to win 60% here, to then turn around and vote for a senator who would have impeached him or who would take the country in a vastly different direction. It's just really, really hard to pull off.
And that 60% number is echoed in this poll as well, that Donald Trump would certainly win re-election in the state of Kentucky. And Joe Biden is not looked upon as favorable. I think it was 66% have an unfavorable perception of Joe Biden. But I'm wondering, does Mitch McConnell have someone he would prefer to run against?
I think probably not. I mean, I think in either candidacy, you have things to like if you're a Republican strategist. McGrath has proven to be relatively inept as a campaigner. I mean, if I handed anybody off the street this amount of money, they would have run a better campaign than McGrath. And again, Booker, I think, actually is more talented than McGrath, but his agenda, his policy views are more in line with the bluest parts of America, which Kentucky is not. And so if you're McConnell, you're basically going to run the same campaign, which is, this is a center-right state. You like what Donald Trump is doing. I've helped Donald Trump implement his agenda, and any of these Democrats would follow Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi down a very, very different path. It's a very easy argument to make. It's not a hyper-complicated thing to try to get across in a campaign message or a TV ad, and that's exactly what I imagine Mitch McConnell is going to do.
So you mentioned Amy McGrath's fundraising, which has been, off the charts. Where does that money go? Would it go to Charles Booker if would some of it at least go to Charles Booker if he were the nominee?
If Booker wins the nomination, he will undoubtedly raise a significant amount of money from around the country, just like McGrath has done. It's not that they're the greatest candidate since sliced bread. It's that they're running against Mitch McConnell. This is the great folly of what the DSCC did here. They had some candidates and they laid hands essentially on Amy McGrath as the anointed candidate for the party establishment. So that's where all the national money went. But it turns out she was the least talented, in my opinion, of the three. So they have all this national money going into a campaign that's not inspiring Kentuckians and it's not really catching on with the people of the state. So, yeah, I would expect Booker to raise a significant amount of money. I would expect whoever the nominee is to have resources. The question for the national Democrats, though, is it wise to dump all your resources into a state like Kentucky when you've got other Senate races that are closer, maybe more possible, when you've got other presidential target states that may need resources? This happened last cycle in Texas. There was a big Senate race. Ted Cruz took on Beto O'Rourke, and national Democrats and donors threw all this money at Beto O'Rourke, only to come up short when they had other races in the country that were starved for resources. I sort of feel like the same thing is happening here. But one thing about modern politics now, at least in the last couple of cycles, is it's Democrats that have all the money. For a long time in my career, it was Republicans that had the money. And now Democrats seem to have an unlimited pool of donors out there who will give money to races all over the country, even ones in Kentucky that are real long shots.
Scott, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it very much. Scott Jennings, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
Much more Hey Kentucky right after this.